So what we will do today, it's about having a look on tool and framework. So I'm not going technically deep on coding or coding example and so on. The goal is to give you a clear view on what a front-end developer should use or are using it. All the software, all the tool, all the framework that you will see during this presentation are tools that I used, I'm using it, or I would love to use, depending on the technology you will see. So the goal, in a bit more fun way, is that you will be able to understand people like front-end developer or geek people around the coffee when they speak of SAS and PM and all these things. It's important, as I wrote on the presentation, I think it's more an inspiration talk than a rule session. I'm not there to say to you, you have to use this one or you have to use the other tool. No way. I give you the basics, what you should use, and especially how you should approach the front-end development. And after, as usually in our team, we use different tools. Someone use some plugin, other the other, but at the end, the goal is the same. So it's to do front-end application, web application, real application, hybrid application, and so on. So the agenda today, in detail, will be about what is front-end. First of all, I will try to briefly explain what we mean today with front-end, because front-end 10 years ago or 12 years ago was completely different, and especially as you know, and I imagine you are there also for this reason, today it changes so fast, and in the last probably 3-4 years, I cannot say that everything changed, but most of the front-end technology approach changed. So after that, we see what we can do today with front-end. So maybe most of you already know, but with front-end, it's not anymore just the website. It's not anymore just the visual design. It's not anymore this one, you will see. And we will go to the clue of the session, that will be a list of tools. We start with fundamental tools, some tools that it's strongly suggested. You are not forced to use it, but it will save you a lot of time. And after, we will focus on specific framework or CSS. Some of them are globally, they use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. JS stands for JavaScript. Other ones are more linked to CSS or JS only. And at the end, I will just list a useful link. This is a list that I keep during all my talk. It's a couple of years that I'm doing talks in Switzerland also, and other clients, and of course in TCS. And it's a list of links that I found very useful, even if they are not so specific. Maybe general link, where to find some inspiration, you will see. And a brief spot on what next. If you will enjoy this session, we have in mind other session, and a QA at the end. So let's start. What's front-end? So a phrase that usually I used to say is that you can explain your job as a front-end developer, telling to the people that you tell the browser what to do. So the browser, it's our main platform. So it's the core engine of our development, of our result. So that's why almost everything go around the browser, and that's why I say we tell the browser what to do, in the way that the browser it's a machine, so it's empty. We put the right things at the right moment in the right way to let him do the right stuff. So front end, the definition that you can find on a book, on a standard course, is that it's the development with technology like HTML, JavaScript, that we abbreviate with JS, and CSS. And these include also the design layout with imaging, button, navigation, link, and so on. And the result of the code, as you can read from the phrase on your screen, is used by backend developer to add business logic, to add data, you know, the content and so on from backend, database, or somewhere else. And what they say that it's also a user interface that enable the front end user, the user of the application or the website to access your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS and the backend data. So this definition is not completely true today. I mean, if we read this one 6 years ago, right, front end on one side, back end on the other. As usual, you know, back-end people use their own technology, they give you data and you use the data to show it in the browser and so on. Today, the line is very subtle between front-end and back-end. That's why we use especially when we mention front-end project or application through our client, we say user interfaces. So what we do in reality today is not only web application or HTML, as it's called wrongly, you will see later, but we say we do user interfaces. So what in the definition of some years ago was something secondary or a result of a combination front and back, today it's our front end development. So interfaces, hello? Okay, sorry, someone was talking. Just put in mute your phone if you don't have question. Thanks. So what will never change, or I mean, what will stay? So the three pillars are HTML, JS, and CSS. So first of all, you need to know these things. So when you speak of front end, you don't speak of user interface only. You don't speak of HTML saying, oh, we do HTML, meaning we do front end. No, no, no. Front end, you divide it in three. So three technology, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. What the three technology do? HTML is the structure of your content. The CSS is just the presentation of your content. So it's like the structure of our body, you know, the bone and what we have that keep up standing. This is the HTML, something that is simple, not too big, and it stay there. Around it there is the CSS, that is something that put you know, the skin color, the dresses and so on. And the more and more you will see this technology, the balance of using this technology is different. That you will see in a second. And you have the JavaScript. JavaScript is putting the behavior. Imagine the example of the body. So moving my hand like this or turning my head, it's done by some sort of JavaScript. If you can make an example. It's true that it will never change, but it's more precise to say that it will evolve. And as you can see, it's evolving very fast. How it's evolving? So, as you see from your screen, it's just an estimation to give you the idea. So, at the very, very beginning, you will see an example in the next slide. At the very beginning, HTML was all your website. I mean, there were tags to put content, like a title, a paragraph with the description, and you had some link, hyperlink. And so was like 80% in a bit of your front-end application or website. And it started to add some visual, coloring the page, adding some images, putting some border, and so it arrived CSS. And after also JavaScript, you know, some element was animating or moving, and more, as you can see from the screen, it's shifting through the JavaScript. I mean, we don't have an explication why it's shifting. I mean, mainly it's because HTML is just the content. And it's important what I'm saying. That means I wrote in this presentation HTML and I didn't wrote HTML5. Except the imaging is just for a representation behind. Why? Because when you say we do HTML5, I mean, maybe people, of course, they understand that you do front-end application, including animation, CSS that move stuff, JavaScript, and HTML, and so on. But precisely, HTML5 is just an evolution of HTML, and HTML is just a matter of structuring the content. Imagine that you have a page, white page, and you write a title and a description. This is your HTML. If your title and description can, I don't know, have an ability, like an API, an ability to do something more, enhanced, this is the enhancement, so this is the HTML5. But we are still speaking only about HTML. To be more precise, we should say we don't do HTML to say we do JavaScript, Angular, CSS, and so on. We should say we do user interfaces, or we do front-end application if it's an application, or front-end mobile application if it's a mobile application, and so on. This is very important if you want to start to do front-end development or to understand. So usually, you know, that's the key. And why is the key? Because as you can see, the balance of the technology shifted from the JavaScript. So if I say I'm doing an HTML application, of course between us we understand, but it's not precise. We should say I do a web application that is using a lot of AngularJS, JavaScript, Node.js that you will see, and so on. So today the JavaScript is taking a bit by bit element from what was before completely detached, the backend. So the shift of technology usage that you see on the screen, it helps us to evolve. This is good on one side. On the other side, it evolved a lot. I mean, it evolved really a lot. Sometimes people struggle to keep up. That's why we have this also event, this meetup, just to wrap up, to say something and to say, okay, let's start from this, that is the core, and after we can experiment and see what will come up in 1 month and so on. I feel important to specify some pillar, because front-end development it's very, very different from a standard development. That means, if, I don't know the audience, but if you are technical, that means you come from Java development, .NET development, or other technology, or even backend development and on database, and you want to move for front-end because you use Mongo and so on. The approach, that means the people that do front-end technology, the people that are at the top in the company, like the MIT, Google, Mozilla, and so on, they have another approach. That means it's more an approach that comes from web agency state of mind. That means these people, I mean me included, they need what I think they are the 4 pillars. The 4 pillars are like be creative, in the sense that to do a button, for example, in CSS, there is not a precise way of doing it and that's it. No, never. You can have the same result in a slightly different way, or in a slightly different approach. Maybe some people will use a couple of lines more, but he will use an animation, I don't know. Or the color is optimized in a way and the other people will optimize in another way. But the result, and at the end the size and so on, is not impacting, it is not a huge difference. That's why the first point is be creative. That means in front-end development, coding JavaScript, coding CSS especially, and HTML, you need to be open-minded and say, okay, the solution is not written on a book. I mean, it can be written on a book, but not every day. Try and play. With the try and play means it's an iterative way. So you will see in my example, the tool that for me are the core tool are standard development tool, basic one, because the core, it's you. So it's you that has to play with the front-end technology and do stuff, and the more you do, the more you learn. It's not enough just to study it and so on. You will see in my tool some utilities to start immediately from today to code and to play and to see other people game, as we can say. And be flexible. With be flexible, it's something of my experience. Be flexible means you will never probably, I mean, in my last 11 years, I never used one tool for doing one thing and that's it forever. You need to be flexible. That means you need to be open to try something else that maybe would not be your tool, but maybe yes. In the last 11 years, I changed more or less 11 utilities to develop. Now I'm using VS Code, I use Dreamweaver, I use frontPage. So the point is that I couldn't, to be a front-end developer in this environment, you cannot say, okay, I will do only Dreamweaver for all my life. As you maybe can say with Eclipse or a Visual Studio, you say, okay, I have all my elements all together. The approach of front-end, and it's very important, more than the tools, because you can have all the tools that you want, but it's not the way is not having everything and using what you need. It's the opposite. You have few stuff and you just add what you need in the time the technology goes. And the key is share what I'm doing today. And I think it's something that it will enhance my knowledge and your knowledge. So let's pass on the next chapter. So front-end technology, what front-end technology can do. So I hope that you will enjoy. I will show you some real example of what today you can do with all the technology that you will have listed in my presentation. Of course, first of all, it's website. Website. So this is the example of the first website, as we said. After we have the presentation of a modern application. As you can see, I'm typing on a website a modern application. As you can see, this is an application that is using AngularJS. It's using some framework that we will see in the slide, and it's responsive. As you can see, in a few seconds, I will shrink the screen to show you also the responsiveness, and it has included inside some tool like an email tooling and so on. And this is just an example. Maybe for you, this one, it's already something really modern. That's it. I mean, this is what we can do today using all this technology. But you will see in the next slide, we have also web tools. For web tools, I mean, are utilities that are not website, but are in between a software and a website. Like the presentation that you see in front of you is not a PowerPoint. It's a web application run thanks to a framework, a tool that is called Slide.js. And as you can see, it's a presentation done completely with HTML5, CSS3 and JavaScript, but I can present, I can zoom, I can have a presentation view for presenter that you will see, this one. And all it's done in pure what we call front-end technologies. And the technology goes even farther. It's a way of calling a stack of front-end. What is a stack of front-end? So means today we can have, and we have in some application, not only the front-end as interface a closed one, like what the user sees, but we have also what the user cannot see, like the backend, the database, and the interaction between the front end and the backend that is called usually MVC or X, you will see in the presentation. As you can see, the name is MEAN, that stands for M for Mango, that it's a NoSQL database that it's done with what we call front-end technology, because our technologies that are not linked to some code like object-oriented as a nature. MongoDB we have Express. Express is I'm not going too much to detail, maybe some people will know, but just to give you an idea, it's something that stays in between the database and our AngularJS, more or less. And Node, it's our server. But the thing is that this server is coded, it's done with the language that is JavaScript. So at the end, it's a database, a server coded with a front-end technology languages that is JavaScript. The same for Express, that is coded thanks to Node in JavaScript languages. AngularJS, it takes the data, more or less, and it put it on your front-end application and vice versa, even with the same technology, with JavaScript technology. That's why this is what you can see, this is the shifting through a full stack front-end development. That's why the more and more you have not only visual or CSS notion, but you have also notion about server, connection with the server, data, and that's why I think personally that in few years there will be in my team and in your teams of front-end developer not only people that will do the interface, but people that will do, as we can say, the front-end back-end, more or less, and the people that will do the front-end interface. What today we call back-end and front-end separated will be in the same team of front-end people. So with this technology, ideally, we can say bye-bye to LAMP or WAMP. For people that know, it's the same stack, but it's not based on pure front-end technology, but it's based on, for example, I know very well WAMP or XAMPP. It's based on MySQL database with PHP languages, and the front-end you can do it with HTML. Well, I'm not saying that, as usually, I'm not there to say it will replace it, it's better. No, we are not discussing, we are just presenting what's the situation today. Even more, what you can do with front-end, you can do a connected object and Internet of Things. That means you connect something that is developed on a mobile or on a computer to another device that is developed with the same technology, with front-end technology, but on another device. Like, sorry for the quality of the video, this is my presentation. So thanks to API, to controlling the presentation on a Node.js server, so what we saw, the mean Stack Overflow, thanks to this one we can move the hand and control the webcam that control the application. This is not science, this is done and is used. And we can also do, show you this video, I'll remove the audio. We can also let different mobile interact to each other, but without connecting it via Bluetooth and so on, but just through web pages. So each people will connect to a website, each people will have a different identification, and they will play the same game on a mobile. And this one is done with the same mean Stack Overflow framework. I'm sorry, but we are blocked on YouTube today, or it's long to load. I will share the presentation so you can see the video. It's exactly what I explained to you. It's for mobile that these people play the same game without installing any application and without having any knowledge of PHP, MySQL, the people who develop it. And and you can even do native application with what, like for Android, iPhone and Windows Phone. I'm not speaking about doing only phone gap application, that means emulating something. I'm not saying we do a responsive one, but you can do with Ionic, this one, real application. So this is a framework, of course, based on all the technology we spoke about, like Node and other plugins that are related to mobile development. And as you can see, they are published as real application on the different store. The good thing is that you develop once, the code is the same code using HTML5 or HTML4, but usually HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript. You package, and the framework, Ionic, will package for iOS, Apple, Android, and Windows Phone. So you can maintain the same code. This is the same approach also for applications. So you maintain the same code, you have automation behind, and you expose to something. And the last frontier, this is really, I'm really excited about these things. It's today with the same exact technology behind, so the developer we want to be and the developer that will develop this application can do it with HTML5 as usual, CSS3 and JavaScript, but they can do real application thanks to Electron. Electron, it's a framework that do the same stuff of Ionic, but not for mobile application, but for desktop application. So you do your web application, you do your website. I mean, we could even take the TATA website, take the data, put it on a standalone database, no SQL like MongoDB. We package everything with Electron, and we have a real application. And for real application, what I mean this one. This is my screen, my computer at work. This is the utilities I use to develop application. It's a bit tricky. It's a front-end application, real application, desktop, developed to develop application. Sorry for the joke, but that's the real things. As you can see, it's an application like Visual Studio. This is done by Microsoft. It's called VS Code, stay for Visual Studio Code, but the small version. But behind it was not coded in C++ or some language that I don't know. Was coded with the technology that I just spoke to you. And as you can see, in a while I will show you that you can use a tool that we are going to see in the next slide. It's a tool of debugging, what we call. You have also a terminal, so you can also have a command line integrated. You see your screen? This is like a browser. You see this one, it's what you have when you press F12 on your browser. I have it in an application. So other examples are Slack, the very famous application to chat. They also have a desktop application. The thing is that they developed the same app. They just packaged with Electron, with this one, and they have Mac application, Linux application, and desktop application. And the application, ideally, could interact with other PC or desktop thanks to the IoT approach on front end. For each of these subjects and each of these applications, because they are very complex, we will see now the core element, but we are not going in detail. We will have probably other session for specific subject, like developing an application with front-end, developing a mobile application with front-end, developing a stack project with AngularJS, Angular 2, and so on. Okay, now you have all this information. You know that what you can do, you know HTML, CSS, JS. Cool. What you need now? You need something. You need the fundamental utilities. So what are the things? So the thing is that you need the right tool at the right moment. As you can see from the photo, this guy is trying to cut a pizza with these tools, and I'm Italian. I know that it's not the right way to cut the pizza, but what I want to say to you is that you can have all the tools that you want. I will show you a lot of tools, but not too much. You just need to use the right tool at the right moment. That's why I'm there, to try to point at you the right tool for the right moment. I will start with something that needs to be like your core. So it's the first things you open in the morning. So browsers. Everyone knows it. We love it and we hate it. I mean, they are our friend and our enemies. So we have to deal with it. No, we have to embrace the power of the browser. So which browser we have? Usually, as you know, we have Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Internet Explorer 11, and Edge. I strongly suggest Chrome because my presentation focuses on some plugin and utilities based on Chrome, but it's up to you. You can even use Firefox. Today also Explorer has the tools that I will show you, and they will I think improve the more and more with Edge. And I suggest to you to have a look to Brave. This is a small things that I give it to you, like after the presentation. There will be a lot of input that I'm trying to give you. Brave, it's a browser done by an aggregation of front-end developers. They develop a browser with the technology that we saw before, the Electron one. It's a real browser, and so they develop it because they loved the way Google Chrome is doing the stuff, but they don't want to be part of a company like Google. So this is independent and integrate automatically the privacy control, and it removes all the cookies and especially the advertisement, what today you can block with ad blocker and so on. This is already a subject, you know, there is this subject through our client about, you know, security, about privacy and so on. Some front-end developer took the idea, used the tool that we have already, and create a browser from scratch. So the second tool, once you have your browser, it's the button F12 on your keyboard. Sounds strange, maybe most of you know. I hope that in the next slide you will be able to see some even more detail. So has a great power, but as Spider-Man, sorry, say, with great power comes great responsibility. So let's spend more or less 6 minutes of a video. I will show you all the tools I use just pressing F12. This is the Tata Consultancy Services website. If you don't see well the presentation, I will share the presentation with you, don't worry. This is the F12, so a tool, a huge tool on the bottom of your screen will open. You can move it on the right, you can put it on another Windows. This tool will help you, so will let you control and investigate on all your code in all the detail. As you can see, I can select a div directly, select the div in the browser and in my console, in my F12, we can call it. If I double click, as you can see, I can even change text directly. Of course, these changes, they will be lost once I refresh. But if I have to test with a client, with a friend, with a colleague, for myself, if the title fit my div or if the color is not correct, on the right I can see in detail what are the spacing, what are the real CSS calculated. It's a really powerful tools. Even more, you can, as you can see, change the color on the fly. This is really important also to test something, even on a website that you don't control. For example, as you can see, I'm on the tcs.com. Of course, I'm not impacting anything on the TCS website. I'm just working on my browser, but using the power of my browser. What I can do also, if I refresh, I show you. I have also a console, as you can see on the bar. I have also a source, a network. So the console will let you see, as you can see, will let you debug the application. So once I'm coding JavaScript, for example, I want to be sure that my function, my things, it's launched. I will write something like this, console.log Aldo test, and automatically will be sent to the console. So I can use it as a debug in the browser. Okay. So this is a tool, console.log, you will see it a lot if you start to develop, to be able to understand what you are doing and what other people are doing to investigate. You use this tool. As you can see, you can go deep and see the page CSS, all the CSS used. So even if I didn't develop TCS.com, I know that they use mainly two big CSS. They use 20-30 images. I can see the size of the images. I can see if they can optimize it, if they don't have to optimize it. And bear with me a few seconds, and I show you also that we can also test the website, our website, or a website of someone else, or the website we are developing. As you can see with network, I can see exactly what is charged, what's the size, when it's charged, what is blocking my website. If it's an image, for example, in that case, there is an image that is very large, and we can see the CSS. We have 4 CSS on the TATA.com website. We see these images, it's a JPEG, it's a bit large, it takes almost 1 second to charge. So as you can see, I started with something simple, and in 5 minutes I'm already talking as an expert in debugging, as we can say, of front-end application. So I can also, I'm not going through everything, I can do JavaScript profiling, I can go even more deeper, and I can even see the cookies, as you can see from the screen. I can control the storage. So what it's saved on my computer by TATA.com is all in this list of things. It's not today the day of learning exactly each element, but the element most important and the one that I showed with the elements control, the console, controlling the code and changing live the code. Another thing that is very, very important for a front-end developer that starts. Usually a front-end developer has an image or a maquette or what we call in English a wireframe that you have to develop. Someone gave you something, and of course today we deal with, especially we deal with responsive. As you can see, clicking on the bottom left, on the second button that you see on your screen in the F12 element, I can open this called the responsive tool. I can see my application and I can emulate in a real environment of, for example, iPhone 6 portrait, as you can see as I speak. I can even control exactly which media query, that means the guy who developed TCS.com, what he used. He used something for desktop target or iPhone. So I have a tool on the top right, as you can see now, to show the media query. Media query are the rule written in CSS that give to my website the behavior of responsive. So responsive equal media query equal CSS. How I test it? Basically, I open this tool and I can test all the media query that you see. The developer set up 3 media query, for example. Another important, so these tools, it's fundamental. Of course, I'm not saying you have to use it, but if you don't use it, it will be very, very difficult to you to test very quickly to see how other people develop the website. So when you will open my presentation, because it's done in HTML, you can do F12 and see exactly what's the size of my font, how I move the arrow to the left, how I put the logo, and so on. And you will learn. You will learn debugging and investigating on other code. This is what I do also every day. Even if I know the stuff, I investigate, I discover something new on a website. Chrome adds something that are called extension. It's like plugin for application. I'm not presenting too much extension. I'm just presenting the 2 extensions that, at my point of view, for a front-end developer will be very, very useful. You can see it on my screen also now. I have these 2 buttons, 1 and 2 on the top right. I hope you can see my mouse. This is the 2 applications I will explain. The first one is Chrome extension. It's called Web Developer Tools. If you research on Chrome extension Web Developer Tools, you will find this application, the one top right. I took a brief video. I will a bit speed up this video for to stay in the time frame. With this application, I can do more or less the stuff I can do with F12. The only thing is that with F12 debugging mode, to disable a CSS, I have manually to remove it and so on. With this one, I just use a button that disables, for example, JavaScript. This is very useful to test offline mode, website without JavaScript. For example, TATA.com, even if we don't have JavaScript, we can access, we can use it, we just don't see the carousel. And this is the debugging I'm doing now, just looking at the website. Maybe some website we develop, we start and we see that it's broken, so we learn how to fix it and so on. What we can do that is very, very interesting, it's also that we can control all the CSS, we can deform, emulate, add cookies, even for people that come from backend technology now, they can open this tool on any website and see how they use the form, the hidden field. As you can see from your screen now, I disabled all the style and I rehabilitated the style. This is useful especially when you target a specific CSS and so on. A tool that is very important also, I'm not going through all the video, otherwise we will not finish the presentation. It's a tool to write, to put a ruler. So I can put ruler in my website, that I'm visiting, really a ruler from the top, left, right, and this ruler will let me align correctly my elements. This is very important, especially when you start, you know that you spend a lot of time maybe because the button is just not aligned. So this one, in the outline tab, it will help you to do this. The second one, and go fast on this one, is just to do print screen or record a page. This is useful, for example, if you are developing a website and someone asks you, oh, how it's looking on this browser, how it's looking on this resolution, and so what you do, print screen, you cut the images. With this one, you just do a print screen of a selected area, as you can see, or the entire page. The good thing is that if you have a long page that is scrolling, the tool automatically will scroll the page for you and will do the images all the page long. So, you know the foundation, the very important tool, and with this one, you can already develop. So let's choose where you will develop. That means the real tools to develop. There are a lot of tools to develop, so you can even keep your tool, like, I don't know if you use Visual Studio, Eclipse, IntelliJ, and so on. Why I'm suggesting these tools? For the same things I told you at the very beginning, the approach. So websites are done by people that come from a not object-oriented mindset. That means they develop with something very light and they add some plugin or some command line if they need. And today, it's what I'm doing. I mean, almost all the people in my team and the front-end developer I know, they use one of these tools. We have a set of open source tools that are like Notepad++, it's called, VS Code, that is the one I show you in the video, done by Microsoft. We have also a competitor done by Adobe, it's called Brackets. We have Sublime Text that many of you probably know. I put a line on it only to tell you that it exists, you can use it, you can test it, but the support, official support, it's dead. So the guy who developed, the team who developed, decided not to maintain anymore, not even the third version. And we have also Atom, that is done, I didn't mention, it's done by GitHub. And all this company, they are using in their team to develop front-end applications. So what you see on Microsoft done in responsiveness and so on is done with VS Code. Now we have also not open source one that are, I think they are the link between people that are moving from pure backend or pure PHP, Java technology, and they want to move to front-end development. I suggest to use something that is in between. It's not too light, but it's not too heavy. So I personally use VS Code, as I already told you, even if I'm working today with a team with IntelliJ. That's why I put it there. It's just a different approach. It's just a different tool, but I use the same technology. A bit joking, but if it's not in this list, don't use it. That means don't try to find too much. You have already a lot of tools. Just try some of them, you will find yours. This is the online tool for play online. So it's what they play, what they call collaborative coding or playing coding. So there are a lot of different open source websites. Doublet, CodePen, JS Fiddle, JS Bean. I mentioned the one I used. I personally use CodePen for no reason, only because the community is very large and people that I follow that are relevant in front end, they use it a lot. What is just a website where you don't have to install anything. You go there, you have your account for free, can be private or not, and you develop HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And they give you also behind the possibility to have Angular already, I don't know, some framework like Bootstrap. So you can really do an example of a button, a website, and you can find a lot of stuff really useful for your application. So now with all this, if I have to tell to someone, okay, you want to code, you want to be a developer, you can stop at this point. So to now, you have the utilities to start playing online with the real code, with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You can start to work and do a website, even a simple one. You can play with responsive, you can test the responsive, and so on. So, of course, we are there now to present you something more. That means, what after? What if I already have these things? What if I want to learn more? What if I want to do more? So we have HTML, JSS tool, and framework. This one I'm going very fast because it's just a website that lets you know exactly what you can use, where you can use it, and how you can use it. That means I'm in Switzerland. My client wants an application that uses a special API, so for example Canvas, or for example testing the light with the mobile, it exists, this API. I can see exactly if it's red, is not supported by the specific browser, and I can also, in the bar resources, I can investigate. This is a tool not only to find what is working, it's also to find the resources on a subject. If you are learning, you should use Can I Use website. Just type, for example, CSS opacity. It's a type of selector in CSS. Maybe you are playing with it. You will have resources. You will have people telling to you, oh, you should go there and visit this one. It's very useful. We have Convertio. I'm not going on the website, just to tell you. This is a tool to convert. Why I'm presenting this one for front-end? Because usually front-end developers receive a wireframe that they have to cut in images, or they have a button and so on. So instead of installing Photoshop or everything, they can start with online tools or open source and start to convert like I do. I convert video in GIF animated, or I convert special images with maybe an images more optimized for the web. We have the very well-known font from Google. So if you need to put a font and make better a website, you can do it with Google only using CSS. And you can just use it live or on your downloading in your application. And we have a tool that is very nice. You can type your website. It's more or less what is doing the tool F12, but this is more for your client, for example. You go to a client, you type tata.com on the Google website. This is a Google project. And instead of the design that you see on my screen, you will see the Tata resites it in the different ones, so you can have a print screen for your presentation or to present to the client what you did in a real environment. Now let's focus more on tools related to CSS, so tools that will help you to code CSS. As you saw, I hope you saw before, when I removed the CSS from tata.com, you saw just a blank page with text and hyperlink. So this is very important to remember. The CSS, it's all today the core to give you the visual, the image, to move the stuff. That's why it's important to do it structured. That's why this is, I'm not going deep, we will have probably another session specifically on SAS LS. SAS LS is just a way of coding. Instead of writing CSS, as you can see from the images, you write SAS, that is better, because as function, variable, you can do iteration, for, loop, cycle, and it's compiled as a object-oriented programming, and it compiled in CSS. So at the end you will have your CSS, but it's compiled, so you can control it, you can test it, you can do your variable, you can have a guideline for TCS, for example, and the main variable is blue. If you change it to red, all the CSS website will change on red color. We have what is important today. Instead of icon, images that are using space, need to be loaded, even if they are cached, we use web font. A tool fundamental, I mean, for me it's fundamental, it's font awesome, you will see. It's a large CSS that gives you the possibility to include icon, not through images, but through classes of CSS. So you type the name of the icon and the icon appears, more or less. If you want to do your own, if you go, we are, as you can see from the presentation, we are trying to go the more and more higher level. If you want to have the same font, but you want a specific one for a specific client, you can design your own for free. You can create on iCommune your own web font and use it in the same way. And now we arrive of what you probably know. We have framework. Why I put framework like Bootstrap in the CSS section? Because Bootstrap and the other one also, the more and more they are moving on pure CSS and HTML component. Why? Because the JavaScript is becoming, as we saw at the very beginning, very huge. So the mechanical things, the functional things will be detached from the interface, color, animation that are managed by framework like Bootstrap. I personally use Bootstrap because especially you will see later, you can control what you use exactly. You are not forced to use everything, and you can also use only, for example, the grid for the responsive without all the rest, and so you don't have to create by scratch. So the goal is to start with something that is already done, only to save time, and also you will learn doing it. We have other framework that come from Google. Google Material Design are guidelines based on user interface studies, and these one are called Material UI and Materialize. I let you investigate. It's the same idea of Bootstrap, but it's done by Google. And these one are the ones that probably are the most famous now, especially through the client. It's Google, because on Angular, they mixed the guideline, so they mix the HTML CSS framework with AngularJS, and they did the two framework that has they have almost everything. They have HTML5, CSS3, and the MVC Angular, Angular 1 and Angular 2. For people that start to play, that they don't want to learn everything from scratch, we have also websites like CSS tree generator that generate for you like gradient, transition, font, text shadow, box shadow, color, border, and so on. And it will be, of course, responsive and will be working on all the different browsers. Let's go to the last session, that is the tool and framework for JavaScript. These ones are really more advanced. Usually we will have probably another session only on what we call front-end automation or architectural automation with JavaScript framework. What I suggest to you, we have 3 steps of scaffolding, so of building something from scratch. You want to build something from scratch, you go on this application, you just select what you want, and you will have your files working on your machine. So you will have a small website, empty, with just an about page, but inside you will have already the things that we saw. You will have, if you want, the bootstrap, you will have the tools to make it responsive, and so on. This is me too how I started. Usually you start with the initializer, it's called, and you investigate on the code, and you move after. You can also go a bit farther, so starting to implement a tools that automate the stuff for you, that let you have a local server. It's like a real environment application. And at the end, this is the final slide. I'm going through the final slide of my presentation. Sorry, I'm 5 minutes late. This is what we call front-end automation. There are a lot of notions. That's why in the presentation I'm just mentioning it. I let you investigate if you want or participate to other talk. Today, thanks to Node.js, that is a server in JavaScript, NPM, that is an interface for plugin, and thanks to some people that developed a big package that package everything, that is called Yeoman. If you go on the website, you will have all the same information. You can do front-end application end-to-end, controlling all the elements thanks to the different component, all the elements of the application. That means you control the CSS generated, you control the JavaScript generated. It's more or less like coding in a language like Java, precompiled languages. And you can automate your development and your deployment. And is in this area that come all the names that you learn, that you already know, like jQuery, Ajax, Angular, and other, because what they are the link between the interface, nice one, and the data behind. It's what we call MVC, so that stands for Model View Controller. The view is the interface, what we already explained. The model is the backend that can be or cannot be front-end developed, can be also MySQL, exposing the data to you. And controllers. The controllers are the glue between front-end and back-end, and is what is very mainstream today. That is AngularJS, AngularJS 2, Backbone, jQuery, even jQuery. And a lot more. So to don't get lost, there is this website that will list all the MVC, including Angular and JS, will give you example of the same application, a to-do application, done with all the different MVC, and this will let you choose the right tool for the right client, and also will let you learn why we use Angular instead of the other, or if we could use Backbone instead of the other, because you cannot for sure learn everything, okay? But you can, as you can see from this slide, you can know where to go to find the answer. So don't panic, just the last 2 slides on how to test. Is not the point of this presentation to explain testing automation, but just to let you know that there are tools developed with JavaScript, mainly JavaScript, to test your application, like Karma, Protractor, and testing also your JavaScript code. Why we focus on the JavaScript? Because, as we said, it's 80% of your application, so it's the things that you need to control even more. That's why there are a lot of frameworks. The most common, like Jasmine and Mocha and Chai and Sinon, to test JavaScript code. And as a final, you have also real-life testing. That means real environment, as you see from the images, thanks to application like Ghost Lab or thanks to open source like Apache. You can type your website on a screen. Automatically, it's view on all the other screen that you see on the images. And you can do a print screen of everything, send it to the client saying, okay, we tested on this device, that device. And even if you think of this one, it's a smaller scale. This is the way I develop and my developer develop. We have laptop, tablet, and mobile phone connected to the same Ghost Lab, and we just develop and we refresh. Everything is refreshing at the same time, and we see live exactly what is happening on our development and application. Now only just a list of useful links. This is the link that you have to go to visit. There are resources on who to follow, people that talk about the news, people about speaking about front end only, podcast, weekly mail, blog. It's like I found Electron, for example. It's how I found Brave. It's how I get update on small things from Google even. Conferences and resources. We have a list of learn websites that I suggest to you. I put only 5 just because it's better to have few links than 20, 30 and so on. And inspiration is just website where you can find very nice application, or not only, especially the last one, Chrome experiment. And so the next talk, if you will enjoy front-end development, will be more specific on CSS automation with Sass or less, and some tool, real tool like Prepros. So I suggest to you, if you are learning front-end, if you want to explore, to start with Initializer, to start with the first part of tools, and attend to the next presentation. Even further, we will explain the automation front-end development. That means a full stack to create an end-to-end application with testing, all automated with front-end technology that you saw in the last slide, like Yeoman and so on. Thank you very much. This is the end of the talk, but the start for you of, I hope, of your journey. Thank you very much to everyone.